tonight's True Crime Time, we have someone who I do have many other videos about, Ted Bundy. And as you likely know by now, these take me a very long time, so if you can like, comment, share, copy link, let me know if this is on your For You page, anything to help me get views. I appreciate you to the fullest extent of the law. I appreciate you to the fullest extent of the law. Stickers with my logo are now available. There are a handful left from the first batch, and if you buy from that one, you get a handwritten note from me. So if you want that, make sure you go to the pinned video on my page for how to buy them, because the first batch will be sold out soon. Okay, so Theodore Robert Bundy was born Theodore Robert Cowell on November 24th, 1946, and he lived until January 24th, 1989. For some reason, this coloring page says he died on January 1st. That's incorrect. Ted was an American serial killer who kidnapped, raped, and murdered numerous young women and girls during the 1970s and possibly earlier. After more than a decade of denials, he confessed to 30 murders he committed in 7 states between 1974 and 1978. His true victim total is unknown and is likely significantly higher. Bundy was regarded as charismatic and handsome, traits that he exploited to win the trust of both his victims and society as a whole. He would typically approach his victims in public places, feigning either an injury or physical impairment, or by impersonating an authority figure such as a policeman, for bludgeoning them into unconsciousness and taking them into secondary locations to be raped and strangled. He would then often revisit his victims, grooming and performing sexual acts with the corpses until decomposition and destruction by wild animals made any further interactions impossible. He decapitated at least 12 victims and kept their severed heads as mementos in his apartment, and on a few occasions he broke into dwellings at night and bludgeoned the victims as they slept. In 1975, Bundy was arrested and jailed in Utah for aggravated kidnapping and attempted criminal assault. He then became a suspect in a progressively longer list of unsolved homicides in several states. Facing murder charges in Colorado, he engineered 2 dramatic escapes and committed further assaults in Florida, including 3 murders before his ultimate recapture in 1978. The Florida homicides, he received 3 death sentences and 2 trials, but he was executed at Florida State Prison in Rayford on January 24th, 1989. Bundy has been described as a sadistic sociopath who took pleasure from another human's pain and the control he had over his victims to the point of death and even after. He once described himself as the most cold-hearted son of a bitch you'll ever meet. A member of his last defense team said that he was the very definition of heartless evil. Bundy was born to Eleanor Louise Cowell at the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Burlington, Vermont. His father's identity has never been confirmed. For the first 3 years of his life, Bundy lived in the Philadelphia home of his maternal grandparents, who raised him as their own to avoid the social stigma that accompanied birth outside of wedlock at the time. Family claimed that Ted was his grandparents' child, although he did eventually discover the truth. Bundy expressed a lifelong resentment toward his mother for never talking to him about his real father and for leaving him to discover his true parentage himself. Ted occasionally exhibited disturbing behavior at an early age. His aunt recalled awakening from a nap to find herself surrounded by knives from the kitchen and 3-year-old Ted standing by the bed smiling. In some interviews, Bundy spoke warmly of his grandparents, but in others he described his grandfather as a tyrannical bully and a bigot who hated Black, Italian, Catholic, and Jewish people. He also sometimes claimed that his grandfather beat his wife and the family dog and swung neighborhood cats around by their tails. And he often described his grandmother as a timid and obedient woman who periodically underwent electroconvulsive therapy for depression. Accounts of Bundy's social life throughout his formative years also varied. As an adult, Bundy seemed very normal to those who knew him and, like I said, was considered charming and charismatic. But then he went on to kill over 30 people.